We've seen news come through the 7th of January today as we're recording. We all knew this was, well, the 5th day of destiny for Western United. They seem to have passed another one. They are still ticking, and we go along to the next.
Yep. It rolls on, doesn't it? The Western United story just keeps on going. It doesn't matter how much you scream at it to stop. It's just going to extend itself at least for the rest of this season and then into next off season. And then who knows if they come back or not, we never know. But I mean, there's more promising signs now than there has been in probably the last 8 or 9 months with this football club. So I suppose that's a positive to take, right? Is that they're not completely dead and buried just yet. By the sounds of things, it seems like there's some kind of assurance they have enough money to pay off their debts. Like, it's obviously, let's not rush to conclusions and say they're definitely back and, who's going to be in their squad next year and all that. As I've seen conversations about that already, which is wild to me. There's absolutely no certainty they're going to be back next season, but it's definitely a much more positive outlook now than it was in the last few months.
Yes, so you're right to stress that this is step one of the path back. A lot of the other, news points of the last 3-4 months, ever since September when they went into hibernation, it has been, delaying a demise, right? A lack of the last step of Western United. This is the first one to come back, and it is just the first of what will be many. So what we learned today, will Western United be back in the A-League? We don't know. Will John Aloisi be there? We probably think not. He's off to China. Will any of their players come back? We don't know. We don't know a lot still, but what we do know is that today, January 7th, was the day that the ATO gave Western United a deadline to prove to them that they could cover their $15.5 million debt that they owe the ATO in order to essentially revoke the wind-up order. And once we get past that barrier, once there is no longer a wind-up order on Western United, then they can focus on other financial issues in terms of getting their FIFA ban, registration ban overturned, paying all their past staff and players up to a certain point that they owed, and then they can begin hopefully negotiating with the APL to come back into the league and building a playing squad, hiring a new head coach, and build towards re-entry into the league. So basically, confirmation has come today that Western United have secured that $15.5 million and will be able to cover that ATO debt. So this money is supposedly, this is all reporting from the Herald Sun, who broke the news earlier today, that major lender Johnson Controls, which is the company that we spoke about back in December when the hearing with the ATO was, is that creditor that is going to, lender I should say, that is going to give Western United the money to pay this debt. So for what motive, Jacob, for what in return, who knows? There is so much behind the scenes that were going on, but that is essentially the news. That $15.5 million that was proposed, and that wasn't solid because there were a lot of proposals, rescue packages before that. This one appears to be solid.
Yeah, like I said, just there's more to this than there has been with any speculation with this club recently. So I think that's the main thing to take from it. And it's just, I don't know. I'm kind of in two minds about this, right? Because you don't want to see a football club go up in flames, and another one for the A-League would be a horrible thing. But it's too far away to say that they're definitely fine, they're definitely safe, they're going to be fine, they're going to be back. It keeps them in limbo, I suppose, for a little while longer, and you can't help but feel for anyone involved with the club, right? Fans as well, particularly, right? This will be giving them some kind of hope to be like, well, maybe we're on our way back, and there's absolutely no guarantee of it. It's just, it's really an interesting time now, and this was the date that was marked in everybody's calendars, I suppose, from an A-League perspective of this could be a really big moment for this club and for the league, and so far it's okay for them. And that's the thing I keep stressing is it's just fine. It's just okay. It's not brilliant and it's not spectacular. But you take that given how negative things have been for them recently. So yeah, look, I don't know what much more to say there. It's just okay. It's just fine. They've got, like you said, a lot of work still to do to keep going, and they can now get onto like a payment plan, right? Like a pay-as-you-go type scheme, I suppose, and slowly work away at this. But there is, and I saw an interesting comment which I found quite amusing, but also it raised an interesting point, which is that A-League clubs are renowned for being about as far from profitable as you can expect. And that's kind of the risk that you take investing in a football club in this country. But it begs the question of how did a football club that isn't making money rack up a $15 million tax debt? That's an interesting, that's an interesting one. But no, I mean, it's at least they're kind of making moves now to try and sort this out. Watch something else blow up in the next 24 hours, though. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, look, we won't profess to be financial experts in tax law or anything, but the debt is definitely there. The ATO have made that very clear, which is what we can work with. The other element of this news, and this was posited in December as well, it was mentioned in the court hearing that around another $5 million might come through from a company that is involved with Paul Lederer, who was the former, now is current again, chairman of the Western Sydney Wanderers. He's back in charge there as chairman of the board. So that money will, you'd assume, go towards settling those other financial issues. Like we said, we know there's the court case with Prijovic in terms of some pay that he was due when he was let go by the club, and that's the reason. That's what triggered their registration ban. It's why Jaden Kaczarski couldn't play for the club in the Cup during the pre-season, and why he went over to Perth so much earlier. To be fair, it worked out for him because he was in that kind of early stage and was able to find a club. We can't forget that so many players, you look at, the success story is someone like an Ollie Laval who went to South Melbourne, didn't get a pro contract in the A-League, went to South Melbourne, played well in the Australian Championship, and now the rumour is he's on his way to the Central Coast in January. So he's got back into the A-League. But there are players that haven't done that. So this has been a really devastating time for a lot of people. You mentioned the supporters as well. They're constantly waiting to see if their club will be back or not. Hopefully this extra $5 million from Lederer or whatever company it is, right? He's obviously the football connection, will go towards bringing them back. And then assuming that, the next month or so, if all these things go to plan, even if we're saying the start of February, and I think that's pretty optimistic for all these issues to be sorted out. If you go to the APL and you say this is happening and they say, yes, okay, you can come back next season, that's still a short window. You've only got till, really late September by the time all the squads start working out to build another squad from scratch. They're essentially, again, 6 or 7 years later, an expansion team again.
Yeah, and they, the only real benefit they have is not having to do things like finding a place to play, like colours and identity and that kind of stuff, right? That's the stuff that's sorted. But yeah, building a squad from scratch, like you said, their players are all gone. They've all gone and taken other opportunities, some to different degrees of success. I wouldn't be surprised if in some circumstances other A-League clubs would be willing to offer mutual termination to former Western United players in the event that the club came back. Not really. I'm not talking like, he's a starter, he's, like a really key part of the team. But
I'm thinking like Ben Garuccio at Sydney, like there's no way they do it for him.
Or right? Someone like someone like a Jake Nijovski at Adelaide United. He's seen all of 3 minutes so far this season. And it's like, well, we can kind of concede that we're happy to let you go. And, there's other players in that position that we can look to anyway. So it's fine. There'll at least be, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of those kind of returning players, but it's going to be difficult for them for sure. I mean, the good thing, I suppose, is that we have seen such good quality at an NPL and championship level recently. Like, the footballers that have been coming through there have been tremendous. But it's always a risk, obviously, taking a punt on these relatively unestablished, inexperienced players. And you're kind of then left with a very bare bones squad. You're not going to want to go too big too early in this. If anything, they will probably be extremely conservative. So it's not like they're going to be out there signing big name players and kind of like they did at the start of their journey. So yeah, it's going to be
just on the NPL player point as well. Like someone left a comment on one of our recent podcasts about this, and I completely agree. The dynamic between the NPL and the A-League at the moment, we talk a lot about the quality gap shortening, but as the financial gap shortens as well between what the NPL clubs and the A-League clubs are capable of, because the NPL is part-time, at least for a lot of these clubs. We know Heidelberg have been training 4 or 5 times a week at points, whatever, but most of these clubs are part-time. So the opportunity in terms of total financial ability for someone to play part-time at a football club and also work a full-time job is often significantly larger than what they have stepping into the base level of an A-League contract. So the A-League has to actually establish that strength to where they can actually attract the top talent for the NPL players. Like, obviously, if they have ambitions of being professionals, then that's a different story. But there is some talent that are very comfortable with their lives in the NPL.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, all these clubs that haven't had these problems in recent years have been able to kind of establish things like youth pathways, right, is a big one. So I think that's going to be a key that Western United will look at if they come back is, right, we've got to establish our own ability to develop players. And they did that when they were around, right? They were one of the better clubs at doing that. But they've got to start from scratch. And I think that's going to be a big point of importance because, like you said, those upper echelon of players at NPL level, it's not going to necessarily be the most attractive to make the jump to the A-League, not in every circumstance at least, and probably especially not with Western United and what will likely be still some uncertain circumstances around them. So I think that's going to be a key area for them to look at, is to continue to do that and go, well, maybe we're not going to be competitive for quite a while because we know we're going to have a hamstrung budget because we just want to stay around, but we can just keep focusing on going back to our roots of what we did really well, of developing these young players and having that talent coming through our own system so we're not having to attract it from elsewhere. And that's, you know, something that a lot of A-League clubs are now doing a lot better in recent years, especially after the success that the Mariners had, kind of doing the same thing. So yeah, that's going to be a key one for them. And it's actually an interesting point you bring up about this kind of the gap in pay being, you know, kind of not equalizing, but getting much closer, right, between the NPL level and the A-League level, because it's something we've actually seen in South Australia for quite a long time, between the upper levels of like the amateur league and the lower levels of state league football, where there are amateur league players that are doing quite well for themselves, and it is far more beneficial for them to just stick around at that level making some good money than it is for them to go up into the state league stuff. So it's, you know, it kind of exists at all levels, I suppose, where if you're good enough, you know, those smaller, lower clubs are going to want to keep you around and are going to offer a little bit more. Whereas when there's, you know, competition and there's other players that, you know, might be, you know, happy to take a little bit less, the bigger clubs will do that. So it's definitely an interesting kind of, little comparison that I found in all of this, because it's something that we definitely see in football a lot, but it's just now starting to come in, where football, it's in kind of, as much as there's always a negative kind of spin on things that are happening in football, it does feel like it's in a pretty decent like period in terms of the football itself, the player development, the strength of clubs, particularly at that NPL level. It just feels a little bit better now than it has done in a long time. And I think that's what we're seeing now, where things are starting to close in. These clubs that have a little bit more spending power and that ability to go out and get sponsors for themselves much more easily and things like that. And now with the introduction of the championship, of course, that's going to make things hopefully even better for them. So it's going to keep closing in, and that is another challenge for Western United to try and overcome if they do indeed come back to the A-League. Building a squad, how do you attract those players? Because, you know, you would be foolish not to look at the NPL as being your local leagues. There's players that'd be available, but you've got to make an attractive offer for them, and sometimes you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. One final point on Western United, and I'm not sure the operations of how a hibernation actually works. My understanding is it's a pretty bespoke agreement that they've negotiated between Western United and the APL. So I don't know what the terms are, but if their license conditions can be changed at all, I think it's really important that the APL learn their lessons from Western United first came into the league and put some requirements around the stadium. I want to see. The financial turnaround is hard, but I don't think, given what's happened in the past 6 or 7 years of being them club, is it unreasonable to suggest that we want to see shovels in the ground before they're admitted back into the A-League? Who says the hibernation shouldn't go for an extra year to give them time to actually fulfill some of the promises that they made about a decade ago now, in terms of actually building the stadium and how they get there, how the functionality of they get there, I'm not really sure, but that's the club's prerogative. It's the club's, you know, that's their problem to deal with. It's ride or die for that club. We've seen, you know, the days of the league helping out clubs financially are over. Then it's not going to happen again with Perth Glory or the Newcastle Jets or Wellington Phoenix. There's been a clear line in the sand drawn through this period. The league is not going to step in anymore because they can't afford to. That's part of the reason why the whole league is in the situation it is now. So I want to see, and we still haven't seen Steve Rosic make any public appearances. We've made a request for an interview. Hopefully sometime in February that will happen. We'll see. We're not quite really sure what's going to happen there, but I think it'll be a good opportunity to put his foot down and say, this league is going to happen with or without you. It's up to Western United to figure out their own issues and build a stadium. And at least as soon as you can prove to us that that is happening, not going to happen, it is happening right now, then you can come back.
Yeah. If it's happening, you can come. I think that sums it up perfectly, Lachie, to be honest. It's one of those things where, I genuinely don't know what more to add, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm actually, I think that sums it up perfectly. I can try. Give me a moment to think of something.
Let's leave it there.
I genuinely can't think of anything more to add. That's pretty well summed up.
I think so. That's the situation with Western United at the moment. Hopefully, we were going to record something earlier in the day, but we hadn't seen a club statement. We still haven't or anything. So hopefully we'll see something in the next couple of days, and we'll let you know when they do pop up.